Okay, this is part 6 of the Holy Grail of Wisdom quotes by me, Pete Rogers, on part 6 of Goethe. We're doing Goethe, the German writer who spanned the time of the Enlightenment into the Romanticism phase of cultural history. Okay, Goethe. He is dead to this world who has no belief in another. And it's also true. Basically, the best artists, the best painters, they're all Christian, okay? Non-Christian cultures stink at art. I made the joke before that, even the caveman made paintings in most non-Christian cultures. They don't draw or paint, okay? They're more backward than cavemen. And then also, if you look at the greatest artists, Bach, the greatest composer, Beethoven, Mozart, Handel, they're all Christians, okay? The best music comes out of the Christian tradition, either Christian traditional, related to Christian, country music, Irish music, it's all Christian, okay? The best painters, the best sculptors, the best architects, it's all Christian. The best charities, the best universities. So that's where it all comes from. So what I'm trying to say is, without Christianity, art tends to fall apart, or the people have no motivation to do it. Most of these other cultures, they're godless, okay? So anyways, he is dead to this world who has no belief in another. So it's like, if you want to be a good artist or a good writer, being a Christian really helps a lot. All this multiculturalism and stuff, all cultures are equal. No, they're not. Compared to Christianity, other cultures, they stink at music. They stink at art. They stink at literature. Okay, the deepest theme in the history is the conflict of skepticism and faith. Nothing is more awful than ignorance in action. Typically what you have is you'll have a smart person pulling the strings, and you have all these stupid puppets behaving like jerks. Only the soul that loves is happy. What you have inherited from your fathers, work on it, that you may possess it. Yeah, we've inherited the greatest civilization in the history of the world, Western civilization, coming through the ancient Greeks, the ancient Romans, the Italian Renaissance, the 1800s, and it's magnificent. But you got to study it to learn it. You don't just genetically inherit it. You got to study it. Okay? Goethe continues. There is nothing more odious than the majority. It consists of a few powerful men who lead the way, of accommodating rascals and submissive weaklings, and of a mass of men who trot after them without the least of knowing their own minds. Okay? He who moves not forward goes backward. Yeah, you have to keep improving a field to keep your knowledge even at the same level. You got to move a lot to keep improving it. Otherwise, you start to fade. Strive to focus your efforts. Concentrate your powers. Yeah, that's good advice too. You got to really focus on one thing at a time to get really good. And then once you've got the skills, you got to kind of like spinning a bunch of plates. You got to keep, like the plate spinner, you got to keep spinning those plates to keep them going and maintain those skills. Trust yourself, and then you will know how to live. And that's a lot like Beethoven's quote. An artist is a man who has learned how to trust himself, okay? I love those who yearn for the impossible. Yeah, most people, are not trying to achieve anything, so it's nice to see when somebody's going for it, whatever it might be. Who strives for the utmost, for him there is salvation. The deed is everything, the glory is nothing. Well, I would disagree with that, because there's a lot of videos that stink, but they get tons of viewership, because they're promoted. A lot of times they're promoted because they stink. They're promoting some BS. It'd be nice to get a video promoted, but, it's a lot like, too, Colonel John Boyd, okay? He said you can either do something good or you can be something and have all the titles, because they won't give you the titles if you do something good. And it's kind of like that, in nutritional medicine these days. You tell the truth, you try to help the pros, and you get ostracized from all the popular stuff. But it's still the right path, and being a Christian makes it easier to follow that path, because what matters most, are you doing the right thing in the eyes of God and your parents in heaven? That's what matters. Goethe continues, in youth, everybody believes that the world began to exist only when he was born, and that everything really exists only for his sake. Yeah, one of the things you admire being around youth is they think they're immortal and that they're invulnerable to anything. So that's kind of a fun thing to see. On the other hand, they're very impulsive. Young people don't have that great a judgment because they don't have enough sense. And they have a very optimistic view of the world, which on the one hand is kind of nice, but on the other hand it's kind of stupid. Okay, Goethe. Daring ideas are like chess pieces moved forward. They might be refuted, but they might also start a winning game. When are men most useless, would you say? When they cannot command and they cannot obey. A beautiful and sparkling but superficial woman rules a wide circle. A woman of real culture, a small one. That's not necessarily true. I saw my mom was like this queen of this big empire. Okay, I had toward the literary art a quite peculiar relation, which was only practical after I cherished it in my mind for a long time, a subject which possessed me, a model which inspired me, a predecessor who attracted me until at length, after I had shaped the work in silence for years, something resulted which might be regarded as a creation of my own, and finally, all at once, almost instinctively, as if it had become ripe, I set it down on paper. Yeah, you work on an idea for a long time, you study a subject, you're trying to understand it because you want to learn it. Like I wanted to learn how to write better, so I spent a couple of years studying everything I could about writing, and then I'm like, well, I'll make a book about learning how to write. And it's been like that for a whole bunch of other subjects. Chekhov, I don't know how this Chekhov thing got in here, but the man and the woman are always the two poles of your story. The North Pole and the South Pole. Every story has two poles, he and she. Okay, Goethe. Nature understands no jesting. She is always true, always serious, always severe. She is always right, and errors and faults are always those of man. The man incapable of appreciating her she despises, and only to the apt, the pure, and the true does she resign herself and reveal her secrets. Well, that sounds like Goethe writing as a biologist and a scientist. And I've heard other writers talk about the truth. The truth is so fleeting that only those who love it may perceive it. Anyways, that's it for Goethe. And again, I think he was quite inspiring, like Ralph Waldo Emerson and Brian Tracy. Hope you found that helpful.